This is Paul. I was reading this law dictionary. They have what's called voluntary appearance, a willing appearance in court. Yes. Then they have voluntary associations, a group of people who voluntarily form an organization or society to carry out some public good, a not-for-profit organization, such as a benevolent society, a health insurance organization, a religious or social political group, etc. Then they have what's called void process, an action of a court that is legally defective and therefore ineffectual, a process that is null and void because of a defect. Yes. I noticed the Volstead Act, the 18th Amendment to the United States Constitution prohibiting the general sale of liquor. The amendment was repealed in 1933. Now, let's say that you issue protection orders without due process. You issue protection orders without personal service. You issue protection orders without proof of service in the file before the court has a court hearing. You issue protection orders without the signature of the petitioner, without giving actual notice and opportunity to the respondent to be heard. Approximately 16 times over the last 6 years that has happened. Now, I would think that the court could void a process that is legally defective and therefore ineffectual. Now, when you talk about due process, it's the process of the court judicial system that is defective. You issue a protection order that has forgeries on it. You would have thought that those in the judiciary would have voided that court process known as the protection order, but for some reason no one wanted to answer any emails. Now, I'm going to need to know why it is that there isn't a judge in America that would void the process that violates the 10 amendments of the Bill of Rights. Now, I know civil rights violations, color of law violations, treason, insurrection, and domestic violence against the United States, issuing court orders that are also court processes. Yes. That happen and violate Amendment number 7 of the Constitution, and then violating my custody rights because of the enforcement of the Volstead Act that prohibited the sale of alcohol and the consumption of alcohol. Now, today, I'm going to need to know all the voluntary associations. The Bar Association is a compulsive association. You're obligated to belong to a bar association to be able to practice law. There are those that said, no, he won't sue the Bar Association. Oh, yes, I will. Then I was looking at the Lobbyist Association. You have to register as a lobbyist today. Now, approximately, 10 to 12,000 lobbyists lobbying different members of the government for different types of laws, and they had introduced new regulations that you have to register as a lobbyist to be able to lobby the government. Now, I started going through the different associations and organizations that have been set up with the intention of having some sort of political influence in Washington, D.C. But you would think that as a lobbyist, you could never lobby any elected or appointed oath of office to violate their constitutional oaths. Now, for every elected member of Congress, those being senators or representatives, Those in the executive branch that know my rights are being violated and my sons are being held hostage, I plan to sue all of them, and then I'm going to want to know every lobbyist that could have influenced the decision making of those elected to office. Now, if those in lobbying firms do know who I am, and they say, well, we better not get involved in this. This is just a little too messy for those in Congress. I'm going to sue every lobbyist that knows that my rights are being violated, because as a obligation, a condition of employment similar to the sworn oath of office, you have to be a sworn oath of office to be in politics, to be elected or appointed to anything in office. I'm going to sue every lobbyist firm and every lobbyist that has to support the laws of the United States. Now, I'm just going to want to go through all those voluntary associations, those that belong to associations for the good of society, a public good. Now, I'm a little upset today that those elected to office have never responded to my emails when I provided the evidence that my rights are being violated and that my sons are missing and abducted. There seemed to be, now I just started to research it last night. In New York City, they had passed special ethics regulations, laws for every individual registered as a lobbyist. Now, you would think the registering as a lobbyist is a requirement to speak to those that are elected to office. Yes, it is. Now, I'm just going to need to know what that legislation says. I'm going to need to know every law that governs every lobbyist and what they can and cannot do with those that are in office. And if any of the legislation requires ethics training about what is or is not ethical, as it involves the enforcement of the Constitution of the United States, I'm going to sue every lobbyist for the last 40 years. I'm going to sue their firms for not enforcing the Constitution of the United States when they know that my rights are being violated, as is the rights of my son.